You and I have spoken, I think, multiple times over the past several years, starting with your book, Ratf, which talked about the redistricting strategy of the Republican Party and how it sort of, I guess, was injected with steroids. I hate to use this type of vernacular, but it was injected with steroids. It was basically the technological ability changed the entire ball game back in 2010. And so let's start and work our way backwards a little bit. Let's talk about, where we are in terms of the Democrats and the Republicans and how tenuous the Democrats have in terms of a majority in this country, and what kind of swing will actually change the balance of power in the House at the very least.
You're right. Democrats have this control in Washington right now, right? They have the White House and they have both branches of Congress. But their control of the U.S. Senate is 50-50 and based on a tiebreaker by the vice president. And their control of the U.S. House is a slender 5-seat majority. And that is despite the fact that Democratic candidates for the U.S. House in 2021, 4.7 million more votes nationwide than Republican candidates. That is a really, really large bulge there. And so when you go back to the previous time that a victory was as large as that, you have to look at the Republican victory back in 2014 when they won by a margin of about 4.4 million votes. That turned into 247 seats. So I think really what you see here is that Democrats have to win by huge majorities, even to have slender advantages in the number of seats that they hold. And Republicans can win much bigger majorities when they win, but they can also hold on to power even with fewer votes. And that's what's got to scare Democrats as they head into 2022. The redistrict, yeah.
I just want to sit with this for a moment, because I think it's hard for people to sort of conceptualize, because it seems so wrong that it's almost feels like it's impossible. And so just to be clear, Democrats won with over 4 million votes. If you add up how many people voted for Democrats for House races total across the country, 4 million people voted for someone with a D behind their name. And the Democrats have a 4-seat, is it 4-seat majority, 5-seat majority?
5-seat majority right now, yes.
And that's what, 223 seats, I think it is?
Yes.
Okay. And Republicans, when they won with a 4 million or so vote majority, they had 247 seats. They picked up 25 more seats than the Democrats. And we have a dynamic like this in Wisconsin. I always reference to Wisconsin because it's such the perfect illustration of this. And it's mind-boggling. They have redistricted there in their state legislature, and Democrats won something like 55% of the vote in the Wisconsin. Democrats did. And yet the Republicans control the Senate, the Wisconsin Senate, 60 to 40% about. I mean, these are round numbers.
Even worse than that, right? I mean, Democratic candidates won 203,000 more votes in Wisconsin in 2018, and yet they won 36 of 99 seats.
And so this is extraordinary. I mean, it's one thing that people, I think, understand, like the Electoral College. Okay, that's anachronistic, and it was put in there to balance out. Who knows? I mean, I don't buy the arguments of the Electoral College, but it is what it is. But there is no provision anywhere in any document anywhere that says one party, if they win a vast majority of the votes, still can't necessarily win, right, in some instances, a majority of the seats. That's
what What Republicans did after they won state legislatures in 2010, in the last decade of redistricting, is they had complete control over map making in some of the most important states in the country: Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Ohio, Texas, Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. These are the states that are changing. These are the states that the census data the other day that was just released, show continuing evolution of the demographics there. Republicans had complete control over how those state legislative and congressional maps were drawn in 2010. Republicans did not surrender a single state legislative chamber in any of those states for the last decade, even in years when Democrats won hundreds of thousands of more votes statewide. And Democrats really were only able to take back the US House in 2018 after a series of court challenges in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and elsewhere won fairer maps. Democrats picked up 4 seats in Pennsylvania off a fair map and 2 seats in North Carolina off of a fair map in 2020. That's 6. If the majority right now is 5, if those 2 partisan gerrymandering cases are not brought or go the other way, you're looking at Speaker Kevin McCarthy or potentially, right, Speaker Donald Trump in this current Congress right now, even though Democratic candidates won 4.7 million more votes.
I had not realized that it was all contingent upon those seats that won particularly that case in Pennsylvania. And we should say that case in Pennsylvania, and I don't know why, I've never been able to really fully understand, reflects the congressional districts only, not the state legislative districts. And so you still have a problem in Pennsylvania as well.
You very much do. And I think that is something we talk a lot about, the nature of Congress and how gerrymandering has given Republicans built-in advantages now as far as the U.S. House. It has also given Republicans huge advantages in state legislatures around the country in all of those states we just talked about. And they are using those gerrymandered advantages in state legislatures to pass aggressive voter suppression bills in some of these quickly changing, closely contested states. They're also using that power to assault labor rights, to assault reproductive rights, to ban the teaching of critical race theory in schools, to insert emergency manager laws in the state of Michigan that voters have vetoed via initiative, but lawmakers put back into place anyway. And then the emergency manager in Flint switches the water supply to the Flint River and poisons the town. All of this is gerrymandering, and all of this is the kind of deeply baked in minority rule that we are seeing a real crisis of. And as we head into this next redistricting cycle, it could get far, far worse.
I want to talk about this next redistricting cycle and the data that's come out, and also what's happening with, in places like Michigan, there's an independent commission. And I saw a breaking story from you the other night, I think it was on Twitter. But first, I want to just address, like, there have been, and this wasn't, an argument that you were met with when you wrote your book years ago. What of the argument that we sometimes hear that that this isn't all a function of redistricting, that it is in part a phenomena of self-sorting that is going on? People of like mind want to live next to people of like mind. If I'm going to move from, Asheville, North Carolina, I'm going to look at like a place like Austin, or I'm going to look at a place like, Cambridge, Massachusetts, or I'm going to go to Burlington, Vermont, or I'm going to go to different places. People are congregating with people who are more like-minded. It's a polarizing time. It's also become very sort of cultural in terms of, our politics and our culture have really melded. What do you say to people who say, look, this is not a nefarious thing. It's just the way that people have sorted themselves.
There is a big sorting going on. We have sorted ourselves, but it has little or nothing to do with the advantages that Republicans have given themselves in the House and in state legislatures through redistricting. And courts have continuously looked at the evidence on this over the course of the last decade, and they have weighed the academic studies on sorting versus gerrymandering. And they have made it clear that in a state like Wisconsin, for example, they estimate that sorting is about 1% of the problem. So there has certainly been a big sort. But that doesn't explain the fact, simply some of the cities that you just mentioned. Asheville, North Carolina has 2 Republican representatives in Congress because they drew the line directly through the middle of the city and cracked it in half. Austin, Texas is a blue oasis in the Lone Star State. It has 5 representatives, 4 Republicans, because of the way that the lines were drawn, and they pizza sliced the entire city up in order to attach a bunch of blue neighborhoods in Austin onto rural, conservative, whiter pieces of Texas. So if you look at the difference really between 2008 and 2012, I think you can really see the difference that gerrymandering makes.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. Catch the exclusive version of this show on The Choice from MSNBC on the Peacock app at 4 p.m. daily, at least Monday through Friday. That's Eastern, 4 p.m. Eastern.